Hi, everybody, back again. It's so nice to be here again. I haven't been making videos for 3 weeks, family tragedy, but it just made me more aware of us not being our bodies, us being alive, and my family members are alive. And it's so amazing to know, just if you go through something like this, to really experience it in such a different way than before. It's not the first time something like this happened. And this time I felt such a different presence and healed so quickly. It's not that I'm avoiding my feelings. That's the whole thing. I'm actually facing what I feel and letting go of the feelings that don't line up with awareness, beingness, Christ-likeness, that you are. Out of the heart flows all the rivers of life, and you will become what you're thinking all the time. So if it's something that is not as God is, even sadness, we just let it go, and then the heart heals. It's amazing. But today I want to just speak about us building stories around things and around our thoughts. Now I was in a seminar, and this one guy made such a good example of what we actually do with our thoughts. Now, you know, thoughts carry energy. It's not just, it's your thoughts are a little bit, there's more, the thought energy is actually around your head as well. So that's why you can pick up somebody's feelings when they're around you, not just the facial expressions. So if you get a thought, he said it this way, you tend to pick a thought, like someone would say something and you pick a thought, and you look at this thought, and then you build a story. You end up telling somebody else about the story, and then you build a little story. And then emotions get attached. As you get more involved and you focus on the story, it becomes bigger. And that story becomes bigger. And that story becomes so big that eventually you are behind and you are faceless. You are behind a story that you are telling as if it's you, but it's not. But you build it so big, and you build it so it feels so real that you actually created matter out of that thought and energy. So you actually built particles that created matter, that created a physical thing in your life. It is amazing if we know this. So what happens, we end up behind the weight of our stories, we reproduce our stories, and then we keep on telling others about our stories, and it actually manifests around us in our life, and you will end up producing those things that you think about, whatever you build the story around. So as we know, where your energy goes, when your focus goes, your energy flows. So that's a similar kind of picture. So you see now what you build, your stories, that you become your stories. And you're not meant to be your stories. You were born out of happiness, joyfulness, love, peace, rest. When you were born, you're the fullness of who God is. And then you go and carry on in life, and all these things stories are created. And when you meet somebody at the age of 40, maybe earlier, and you ask them, you know, what they do, etc., and all of a sudden all these things and experiences come up, and people really relate so much to what they've been through, that if they started writing around what is good in their life, and if they write down what is good in their life and what is bad in their life, they end up making a huge list of what is not working, because they're so used to building stories. As if somebody comes to you and they said, my life is amazing, you just don't relate to that, because most people relate to their not so good life, the areas that aren't so good. So when you share how awesomely amazing, not without challenges, that's the whole point. It's not that you don't have challenges, but in your challenges, you are so ecstatically joyful that it doesn't become an issue whether you have the challenge or not. It's like the effect that you're so at rest and peace no matter what is going on. So when people ask you how you are, you're not faking it. You really are joyful, because you are not focused on your external. You're not now going to make a story out of whatever challenge that you are dealing with. This is truly really powerful. So what about being different and not being like the system of the world that kind of only relates to stories that aren't really nice. It's kind of like you give people badges if they tell you stories of the hardships they went through, and so many stories without even really being asked. It's like you identify so much with these things, and it's not that you're not grateful that you come out of the story, and sometimes it definitely would help somebody. But the problem is that the thing is that too many people relate to people's bad stories. Like my son asked me, because I used to do this, and my son asked me one day, Mom, so can you only know Jesus if you've been a drug addict? Seriously? Because I was always telling these stories about, oh, this guy was like a devil worshiper, and then he came to Christ. So all the stories were always related to how bad people were. So he was thinking, like, think about what children are like. So he put it together. Okay, so I really have to be really bad to need Jesus first. Really? What kind of craziness is that? So what if it's the goodness of God that brings people to repentance? What if we just show how much love we have for people, that they're drawn to the love which is inside of you without having to preach or having to always tell stories about somebody that was a drug addict before they became enlightened and knowing Christ? Oh my word. This is like really, for me, it doesn't make sense anymore. So the whole point of this is stop thinking that you have to have a story to tell someone before they become enlightened, or stop thinking you have to always share bad story. Why don't you just start sharing really good stories and not worrying whether, oh my gosh, nobody's going to relate because they can't relate to my good stories. And still with the understanding, it's not that you act like the things that you go through is not there. You just always constantly full of joy and full of peace. And this is normal. The rest is not normal. It's not normal to only be able to talk about the bad things. So become aware. Next time you meet your friends, even if you have a challenge, okay, if it's your very intimate good friend where you only share very things that is on your heart, there's always a place for that. I'm not saying never ever talk about a challenge you're going through, but normally it's a tiny circle. It's a circle of trust. And we know there's only a few people that have this little circle of trust where you really share your heart. And you share it because the other person is always giving you objective and saying, no, this is how you can see from a heart of love. But what if you stop running around and telling the whole world of like kind of feeling guilty if you're doing well in your business, or kind of feeling guilty when you drive a nice car because you're just applying these principles of your abundance, and start talking about what is good and what is working so it can actually help the next person. Start seeing the best in the other people and not the things that you think you need to fix about them. Start with yourself first. But when you see others, encourage them to be their best. I promise you, this is where the world is being transformed by love. Because love is the law of attraction. So if you become aware that you are love and you're focusing on love, you're going to see everything through the eyes of love. So I'm going to leave you guys with this today. You change and the culture changes. So even if the one of you listening to this video, you know what I'm talking about, why don't you just start letting go of all the stuff that you thought could make people relate to you and start living from life? You know, we said everything yesterday was yesterday. What does it actually mean to live in now? It means that you're just aware of the goodness of God, the goodness of awareness, whatever you call, and you, whoever is watching, if they don't know Jesus Christ, if it's awareness and beingness, full of love, rest, peace that you relate to, what if in the now, you're not going to tell people about the 50 things that you went through so they can relate to you. Rather, bring them life and fullness of love. And see how that feels. It raises your frequency. And you don't have to keep on thinking you have to save people by telling them old stuff. Like I told you, like kids are just amazing. So you guys have a wonderful week. I look really forward. Like I said, I think I said the last video, but because of the family thing, we didn't do it. But to launch the school, I'll be placing posts coming up in the next week for the Quantum Academy, where we will be teaching transformation for you in group settings. So look for it. And if you already say, that's something I'm really interested in, information will be coming up with email addresses, etc., etc. We'll be doing master classes to share with you what that is all about. But we would like to bring everybody together to walk as one in a community setting and learn all about you, and in such an amazing way of discovering your true identity and being able to live it out in an extremely practicable way. Heaven and earth colliding as one, and no separation in anything anymore. So your mind and your heart is coherent in all things as you start living from love. So I look forward to sharing that with you. Have an awesome week, like I just said. Till next time, goodbye.